So you come up with an awesome phrase that would be perfect for a mug, a t-shirt, a card, or a hat. Can you run down to the trademark office and file a trademark for that phrase? That's exactly what we're going to cover in this week's episode of Ask Kiff. Hi, I'm Kiffany Staley, founder of The Artist JD, a place designed to add ease to the legalese of running your creative business. This week's question comes to us from Jennifer in Florida. She asks, can I trademark a t-shirt design? So we know that short phrases don't get copyright protection, but we hear about all the time in the news people running to the trademark office and filing trademarks for phrases that appear on hats or t-shirts. So can you do that, and is it a smart thing to do? Before we get into that, let's remember why trademarks exist. Trademarks exist for consumer confusion, so that consumers know when they see a specific phrase that they know who's providing them that product or service. So when I go to Old Navy, I know that Old Navy is selling me the clothes because there's the big signage in front of the store, the receipt says Old Navy, the staff is walking around with Old Navy tags on their shirts, the sewn-in tags on the clothing say Old Navy, and the hang tags say Old Navy. Yes, there are Old Navy shirts and other pieces of clothing that say Old Navy on the front of them, but just because it says Old Navy doesn't necessarily mean that I know that Old Navy is selling me that clothing. Now, Old Navy is probably a bad example when it comes to something on the front of the shirt because it is a very well-known brand. But if Old Navy and Anthropologie were both selling shirts that say Love Wins on the front, I wouldn't assume that Love Wins is the company that's selling me the clothing. I would look inside the shirt and look at the sewn-in tag to figure out who the maker of the shirt was. So the same exact thing applies here. So if you come up with a great phrase, yes, you can run down to the trademark office and file a trademark application for it. There's nothing that's going to prevent you from doing that, and the USPTO will gladly take your money. The problem is going to arise as you go through the process of getting the trademark. Filing the application doesn't mean you have the trademark. You still have to go through the review process. And there are two parts of the review process that you might get hung up. The first part is if you've already got the t-shirts and as part of your application you submit a photograph of the front of the t-shirt to say, USPTO, this is how I'm using the t-shirt to sell my product or service. The USPTO is going to issue what's called an office action to say, we don't necessarily agree with that. And that's because of the exact reason we talked about before. If I see a Love Wins shirt, I'm not going to think that Love Wins is selling me the shirt. I'm going to look inside and look at that tag, that sewn-in tag or that printed-on tag, to figure out who is making the shirt. So the USPTO is going to issue an office action and say, we need to see something else that proves either, show us the sewn-in tag, show us the hang tag, show us your e-commerce store with this phrase as the company that's selling t-shirts, show us some other proof that was created by the date that you submitted the application in order to get your trademark. So that's the first place you may run into problems. The second place you may run into problems is if you file your application and you say, I'm not using it yet. If you file it on what's called an intent to use basis, you'll make it further through the application process. And once you, at the end of the application process, in order for your trademark to become official, again, you're going to have to submit that proof. And once again, when you submit a photograph of the front of your t-shirt, the USPTO is going to say, nope, sorry, that doesn't cut us. Show us some other proof that was available on the date you said it's now available that proves that you're using it in a way that consumers are going to identify you as the seller of the t-shirt. So the short version, putting something on the front of a t-shirt, yep, you'll be able to file that application, but you're not going to be able to get the registered trademark just by putting a phrase on the front of t-shirts, mugs, cards, hats, and the like. Instead, you'll have to take it another level and make sure that your e-commerce store, that the hang tags, that the sewn-in tags, that the printed-on tags all identify that same phrase as the person who's providing those shirts to consumers. Ask Kiff will be back after the Thanksgiving holidays, and we'll be talking about how you're going to use all of that feedback and testimonials that's amazing that you're getting from your clients and customers over this holiday season next year to sell more products. Got a question you want me to cover in an upcoming episode? Leave it in the comments below. Before you go, make sure you check out that video above. If you've got a phrase that you decide you want to use in this way, it's going to talk about where you're going to have to search to make sure another business isn't already using that phrase. And if you haven't hit that subscribe button, subscribe so that you can get notified each time a new episode drops. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you soon.